Hello, everyone. This is Jimmy Cultist, back again with another Dreams. Well, I guess it's logic. It's about how to create low poly visuals, not unlike a PS1 game. It's my particular method, and it's not exactly accurate to PS1 graphics, but you know, it's in that general range. First thing you're gonna need is a microchip. We can call it World Settings. My methodology, not settling, settings. My methodology involves using a filter combined with simplistic geometric sculpts, and mostly utilizes paint. It's very thermo-friendly though. You can turn down the detail quite a bit on these sculpts and it will still look fairly decent. So let's start out with our lighting. Something to bear in mind is most PS1 games will have skyboxes. And stuff like fleck randomness you probably don't want on. And horizon definition you may not want on either. Fog range. The issue with fog range is although these older games do have, you know, fog and draw distance, the fog in Dreams isn't exactly like that fog. It's very, you know, I find in those older games it's almost like the level just completely cuts off where the fog is, generally. Another thing to bear in mind is older PS1 games, there might be exceptions to this rule, they generally don't have shadows, so you can turn off cast shadows. And I usually turn the sun off anyway, because I don't really like the custom, you know, I usually make my own custom sun rather than using the preset one. I just don't like it very much. And we'll go for about 238 lighting to start with. Next we're going to stamp out grade and effects, which is a major part of how I accomplish the graphical style. There isn't really bloom or lens flares in PS1 games, at least not most of them. They might have synthetic lens flares where they like have a rendered sprite for the sun's, you know, beam or whatever. But they don't really have bloom the way we do now, so I would generally stray away from having that. Although, you know, you don't have to play so hard and fast to the rules if you want to make something kind of unique. And this part's a bit imprecise, but you're going to want to mess with X resolution. Or Y resolution. Just, you know, mess around with this thing. But it's going to create a pixely look. You can already see it's kind of, you know, taking effect. But for now, we're going to turn that off, because we're going to be making an asset to render. And what we're going to try to make here is a brick wall. So we're going to first select spray paint, which is pretty useful for creating the PS1, you know, look of low poly textures. Going to tone down the opacity just a little bit. I think that's a bit too thick. Let's make it thinner. I think that's more accurate. Now we're going to make this thing a bit thicker and shrink it down. We will make it longer though, so that it goes all the way through the sculpt. That should do it. Now the quality of your effects, you know, is mostly up to you. It could vary quite a bit. We're also going to lower detail a bit so we get a good idea of what this is going to look like. Something around that. I would turn off luminoise and color tint amount. I think that helps the effect somewhat. Also, we might thicken this just a bit. Now turn down the opacity on our spray paint, and we're just going to make these little stamped squares on the edges here. Kind of give it that pixely look to some degree. It's not necessary to have them 100%, you know, grid-based. It doesn't even look bad before the graphical effect is added. So if you just want to turn the effect off and have a normal game that's mostly just paintings on sculpts, you can also do that. I won't bother doing the bottom, but presumably if you were going to, you'd probably, you know, do that. We'll turn up the lighting just a little bit so we get a good look at it. And now we'll turn on our effect. And I'd say that's a fairly, fairly good low poly looking wall. I might add a bit of darkness extra to it. Yes. Also, we might turn up the neatness. That'll help with the look a bit. Another thing you can do is keep in mind that, these things don't really cast shadows or emit glow, so you could probably turn that off. You could make it waxy so that light goes through it easier. That looks even more PS1, you know? Although the PS1 probably wouldn't have these jagged, renders on the edges. It'd be like sharp edges but low poly texture. It's probably closer. It's just sort of a rough effect. Another thing you could do is if you're dissatisfied with the wax, you could actually turn up the glow a bit to add even more, lack of shadow to it. And if you wanted to apply, artificial shadows, I would heavily advise a text displayer. Just stamp it on with L1 and X so that it adheres to the surface. Turn down the opacity of the text. Put it to in scene, set it to sticker mode. Give it some depth. But in PS1 games, there are occasionally static shadows. They don't usually have dynamic shadows. Although if you wanted that in your game, you could have that. It's okay to try new things. Don't be too rigid. But I think that makes a pretty good false shadow, if you want to. It does mean that you'll have to add things manually, but if you want that extra authenticity, I think it's definitely worth it. There. That's roughly how it would be. I may cover a few extra objects like rocks and such, just to kind of, hammer the point home. A rock, I guess, isn't too different from a brick, but let's give it a try. The main thing is just to have straight angles, I think, generally. You don't want to have smooth, round things. Because in the old days, rendering a perfectly smooth, round object would require a lot of polygons and rendering, so, it was usually considered not worth it. In most cases. I imagine there's some examples in PS1 games of spherical objects that are fully rendered for whatever reason. But generally, it's something they didn't do. You can actually sculpt in this mode, although sometimes the edges can be difficult to judge, so, you know, if you ever do want to go back into normal mode, there's always the studio lighting, which takes off the filter. Or there's the other alternative, which is, you know, just turning off grade and effects manually. That's pretty much a rock, although we'll turn off luminoise, make it waxy, give it a little bit of shine, no glow, no shadow. Yeah, that's pretty good. I might cover a tree as well, just real quick, because it's a fairly simple, you know... This is where I might turn that off to do the tree. It looks okay even without, you know, the filter. And I think if you do a certain level of paint detail, you could probably make it look like a PS1 game without even applying the filter. But I just think the filter helps extra, you know... It would make a decent game even without it, though. Probably closer to a PS1 game, you know. Anyway, what was the other... Oh, yes, the tree. A tree, I would say... I would use actual examples. It kind of depends on what sort of tree you're trying to make, but I use Ocarina of Time as a basis. I know it's not PS1, but, you know, it's low poly. Something kind of similar. And I would just put it to stamp shape, select a cylinder, select mirror, select kaleidoscope, 5, grid snap. Just stamp it out like so. But use real games as an example of, you know, what kind of models you're shooting for. I think that really helps if you're going for authenticity. You can get creative, but having a reference helps to some degree. So just slightly tip it so that the tree tapers. Like so. Yeah, that's a pretty good low poly tree. And we'll just add a few limbs. We'll turn off mirror and all the other stuff. A lot of limbs that I saw were pretty much just jutting triangles or pyramids coming out of, you know... I've played a few of these older games, so kind of familiar with what it looks like. It's actually extremely beneficial to Dreams, I would say, to use this kind of graphical style. It may take a little extra work in the paint department, but it's very easy for the most part. And just lower the detail. It's also very thermo-friendly, which is a major benefit, I would say. Now we'll give it a sort of tree-like color. Dark brown. We can alter this later, though, if we don't like it. And I think this time, instead of squares, I'll use triangles. Or pyramids. Don't forget to set it on clipped mirror. Let's turn down the fuzz. Now let's add a little bit to the limbs. There. Pretty good tree, I'd say. Oops, don't turn that off. Real quick, I might cover the subject of sprites, or, if you wanted to make a bush or something. Or even, a treetop. We're going to be doing something similar to what we did with the trees. The only difference is this time we're working with something flat to kind of, it's going to be sort of a sprite-like creation. Oops. Don't have it too thin, though, because we're going to be reducing detail and wouldn't want it to go too hard. Otherwise it might just disappear altogether. We could add a little extra thickness, I think, under the circumstances. Just a tad. And modify it later if it's not to our liking. Also, maybe increase the cut. The depth of our box that we're using to do the cutting. Oh, and don't forget to set it to smear when you're doing this part. Just remove all that up there. A few stray pixels here and there wouldn't be unusual. Once again, there's lots of methods you could use. You could probably actually just paint the tree entirely, you know, using paint flecks. Kind of like to get that little fellow right there. Okay, I think that's a fair enough workaround. We're going to set it to waxiness and roughness 100%, negative 100% on the waxiness. We also might thin it down just a little bit now that we've done our work. Not too much, eh? That'll probably do. And we'll just pick a color. It's probably something green, you know, because it is a tree. Turn up the neatness, that probably will help quite a bit. I think we'll add a few dark pixels here and there. Turn it up a bit. In there we have a pretty good basis. That middle part is just a little bit annoying, so maybe we could pull this back and get rid of it. Or we could just get rid of it the other way, the manual way. Use black, that's probably the best way to discard the thing. There we go, and that's roughly what, you know, it would look like, I suppose. Yes, I think that should work fine enough. Now, as for the puppet, I won't be covering it, but I will be, you know, stamping it into the scene just to show what it looks like next to the other assets. I think the puppet, what you'd probably want to do is just get rid of all these smooth edges and make something that's very polygonal and straight-edged, you know. Something kind of like a Minecraft character, maybe not that boxy, but, you know, use your imagination, I suppose. I might cover that separately if anyone's interested. Oh, don't forget to turn off shadow and glow. It'll really help. Anyway, hopefully you found this useful, and that's all for now. Here are the names of all of our lovely cult supporters. Many thanks to all of you. If you'd like to get your name in those credits, check the link in the description and head over to our Ko-fi. You can become a cultist neophyte to become credited at the end of our video, or you can become an acolyte to gain early access to videos in addition to credit. Now, if you aren't in the mood for membership, you can always leave a one-time tip. If you enjoyed this video and are not already subscribed, consider hitting the subscribe button down below. And maybe give us a quick like, both options are free. Also, don't forget to ring the notification bell so you will always be notified when new videos come out. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions, leave them in the comment section. Or if you just want to let out your pent-up rage, give us some smack talk. Until next time, goodbye.